realized yield approach. When we were dealing with cost of equity, out of 5 approaches, we have learned only 3. Dividend price plus growth approach, dividend price approach, and earnings price approach. Realized yield approach, from your examination viewpoint, it is lesser important, but when you again move to final CA level, you will find that there is high application of this concept of realized yield approach. Now, what is this realized yield approach? Let me explain you. It could be computing KE in the usual manner. You know, you would have learned one formula for KE, where you take KE equals to D1 plus P1 by P0 minus 1. That is D1 plus P1 upon P0, put it within brackets, from that you subtract 1. That version of KE formula is what we generally apply in realized yield approach. So here we don't use a growth rate, we find the rate of return on year to year basis. But what is the significance of realized yield approach? Let me explain this first of all. So suppose you want to find KE. How do you find KE? By using the base formula, we have learned KE equals to D1 plus P1 by P0, putting that whole thing within brackets minus 1. What is the logic behind that? D1 and P1 are the expected values by end of the year. We have yet to see those values. We don't know what will be that value. It is just expected. And the price what we take as base price, that is P0, is the price prevailing now. Realized yield approach applies the same thing but little differently. How? Realized means what you have already realized. So the D1 and P1 that you find over there in the numerator, you take the D1 and P1, what is prevailing now, and the price as base price P0 should be the price of previous year. So now there is nothing expected, everything is what is realized. For example, suppose the current price of share is 230. Note my point. The current price of the share is 230, and in the current year company has already distributed dividend of rupees 20. 20 rupees is the dividend and 230 rupees is the current value of the share. So the aggregate of dividend and price at today's term will be 20 plus 230, and then we will look into what was the price before 1 year. Before 1 year, suppose the price was 200. So we will consider already distributed dividend of today as D1, what is already existing share price of today as P1, and the price that was prevailing 1 year back, that we will consider as P0. So formula remains same, D1 plus P1 by P0, but instead of expecting the dividend and share price after 1 year, we will take the current year's dividend and share price as the numerator and previous year's share price as denominator. The simple logic is P0 and P1 will have gap of 1 year, correct? Under all the earlier approaches, what we have seen, P0 as the current price and P1 as expected price after 1 year. Under realized yield approach, what will happen? P1 is the current price and P0 is the price 1 year back. That is the difference. So here nothing is expected as dividend and share price, everything is what has been observed. So what has happened in reality, talk about that, don't talk about your expectations. So instead of talking about what would happen in future, you better make calculations from what has already happened in past. Let that be the indicator of future rate of return. And that is where the role of realized yield approach comes into picture. Now here we have two different approaches to be applied. One, suppose I give you the dividend and price details for year to year basis. Each year dividend and price details I inform you, each year. Then all these are dividends and price given to you on year to year basis. You work out KE for each year individually. For example, when you are computing for the first year, you take the dividend and share price at present and divide it by the price of the share that was prevailing in the previous year. Then you go for the second year calculation, so it will be a chain reaction. For example, today if the share price is 200, the base will become 200. Later on, next year, the base will be becoming what? Not 200 but the next year's share price. So basically, you will make calculation of KE on year to year basis, and finally you will take an average of all these KEs to finally arrive at your proper KE. That average could be either arithmetic mean or geometric mean, or it could be even representing IRR. When should you take IRR? Suppose I give you information about each year's share price, then you simply take year on year basis KE and then take average of the same. However, if I give you only the information about dividend of few years, and then suddenly I give you a lump sum share value at a particular year end, so then these are all considered as if they are future cash flows. Discount them to their present value. Their present value should be matching with the cost of the equity share, and the rate of return that discounts the future cash flows to the cost of the share, that will be IRR of that equity share. So IRR will become realized yield. So it is like that. So we will be solving some calculative examples which will actually give you complete understanding. So right now I will not even bother myself to ask you whether you people understood this whole thing or not. Instead, what I will do is I will give you some notes in writing. I will solve a couple of examples, and then I am sure your understanding will be crystal clear. So let us do one thing. Let us first write up some important notes, and then we proceed ahead with calculative examples. So under the heading realized yield approach, write this first point as: according to this approach, the average rate of return realized in the past few years is historically regarded as expected return in the future. It computes cost of equity based on the past records of dividends actually realized by the equity shareholders. In case the price details are available at each year end, determine the past returns for each year and then either use arithmetic mean or geometric mean for determining the average rate of return. In case the price details are not available at each year end, determine the IRR and consider the same as expected rate of return in the future. This part I have already explained to you. However, complete understanding will be developed only after solving calculative examples. Let us move ahead and take up some calculative examples. I would say very important examples. So let us first write up that example. Example 1. Determine the average rate of return based on the following data. They have given you data for year 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have given you details of dividend and share price, and further informed that at beginning of year 1, the price of the share is rupees 200. Now please allow me to explain something over here. Notice one thing about this line given in the question: at beginning of year 1, the price of the share is rupees 200. So this is the initial price at the beginning of year 1. So when in the question they have written year 1 and dividend and share price given for year 1, it is implied that this cannot be the price at the beginning of year 1. That price at the beginning of year 1 is 200, and anyway when we write year 1, we always mean by end of year 1. So tell me one thing, by end of year 1, how much is the dividend? 20. So I will consider this as D1. What is the share price? 220. I will consider this as P1. So D1 20, P1 220. D1 plus P1 would give you 240 divided by P0, that is 200. So 240 divided by 200 will give you 1.2. From that subtract 1, you get 0.2 or 20% as rate of return for first year. Similarly, when you go to the second year, D1 in the second year is 25, P1 for the second year is 250. Now don't by mistake divide it by 200, because for second year the base price will not be 200. For second year the base price will be the price that prevailed in the first year. When you come to the third year, for the third year this will be D1, this will be the P1, and the base price will be 250. When you come to fourth year, 20 will be D1, 361 will be P1, and 300 will be P0. I am sure you people are able to understand how we are connecting this information. Now let us also look into how to present the solution for the same. Over here in your solution, the formula that we have learned earlier, it is the same formula I told you. There is nothing new over here, only the notations will change. Now D1 is not an expected dividend by end of the year, instead dividend receivable by year end, but we are already at end of the year, correct? Now P1 is the market price of equity share by year end. Have you noticed one thing? From D1 and P1 the words expected has been removed, because this is not the earlier approaches, this is realized yield approach, because we are already standing at end of the year, so there is nothing expected. We know how much is D1 and how much is P1. KE is what we want to determine, and P0 is the market price of equity share at beginning. So let us compute the rate of return for each of the 4 years by using the same formula that we have discussed. Here for year 1, D1 will be 20, P1 will be 220, and P0 will be 200. The KE for that first year would come to 20%. So please observe this one thing, 220 was P1 for year 1, but this 220 will become P0 when you go to the second year, because that will become the base price for the second year. Just take care of that. So when you come to year 2, the D1 and P1 are given in the question, but P0 when you take for year 2, don't by mistake take the base price as 200, it will be 220 as the base price. When you make the calculation, it comes to 25%. And likewise for year 3 and year 4. I am sure you people have understood these calculations. Now time for us to move ahead and take the average of these 4 years rate of returns. And how do we do that? We first apply arithmetic mean, and you know how to determine arithmetic mean. X bar is summation of x divided by n. So we had returns spread over period of 4 years. We will just take aggregate of the 4 years rate of return and divide it by 4. And when we do this calculation, that is 20 plus 25 plus 28 plus 27, in the numerator we will definitely get 100. 100 divided by 4 will give you 25% as rate of return. Beta, when you apply geometric mean, you cannot directly apply these rates of returns. Please carefully understand, when you are applying geometric mean, what you will do is, you will not consider 20, 25, 28 and 27. In fact, you will take the future value factor. For example, 1 rupee with 20% return will become 1.2. 1 rupee with 25% return will become 1.25. 1 rupee with 28% return will become 1.28, and 1 rupee with 27% return will become 1.27. These 4 factors, 1.20, 1.25, 1.28 and 1.27, will be multiplied. Because it is geometric mean, you are going to multiply 1.2, 1.25, 1.28 and 1.27. Because you have multiplied 4 factors, you are going to take 4th root of that observed value, what you get at the end. What I am trying to tell you is this. So 1.2 into 1.25 into 1.28 into 1.27 whole raised to 1 by 4. And because this will be still giving you a future value factor, you still need to subtract 1 from this. And when we apply this calculation, do you know simply how to take fourth root? If you take square root of the square root, you will get the answer. So what you first do is, on your calculator, 1.2 into 1.25 into 1.28 into 1.27, whatever value you get, take square root of that, and on the obtained answer once again take square root, and you will get 1.2496. From that you subtract 1, you will be getting 0.2496 or 24.96%. Let us move ahead and take up another example. Miss Roshni had purchased a share of NJ Limited for rupees 1000. She received dividend for a period of 5 years at the rate of 10%. At end of 5th year, she sold the share of NJ Limited for rupees 1128. You are required to compute the cost of equity as per realized yield approach. We find that for 5 years period they have not informed what? The price at each year. They have given only once the price at the end. So have you noticed one thing? To buy this share, this shareholder has invested rupees 1000, and what is the amount of dividend she is getting? 10% every year. So 10% on 1000 will be what? 100. So till 5 years she would receive dividend of 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, and 5th year end she would sell the share for 1128. So all these are future cash flows. 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 5 cash flows towards dividend, and 1128, one last cash flow towards the sale of the share. All these future cash flows should be discounted to their present value. The present value should match with 1000. That means we have to find IRR of this investment. And IRR, you know how to calculate. When you can calculate IRR easily, you will be getting IRR as your KE over here. So I will give you the entire answer in a systematic format approximately. So how to present the answer? Let us have a look into that. We know that as per the realized yield approach, the cost of equity is equal to the realized rate of return. Therefore, it is important to compute the internal rate of return by trial and error method. This realized rate of return is the discount rate which equates the present value of dividends received in the past 5 years plus the present value of sale price of rupees 1128 to the purchase price of rupees 1000. The discount rate which equalizes these two is 12% approximately. So on your calculators you would have attempted the calculation and you would have worked out that 12% is the approximate IRR. Let us move ahead and observe the solution further. Let us look at the table given for a better understanding. So we are just showing by calculation that for year 1 when your cash flow is 100, year 2 your cash flow is 100, year 3 cash flow is 100, year 4 cash flow is 100, year 5 cash flow is 100, and again year 5 the cash flow is 1128 towards the sale proceeds. Friends, generally each year the dividend figures are in 3 digits, right? So the common sense that I have suggested you to consider for discount factor, the PV factor should be taken after decimal as many places as will be the number size. So here we find the dividend as the major component of the cash flow, which is given in 3 places, or it's a 3-digit number, and therefore we would prefer applying PV factors at 12% for 5 years by taking just 3 places after decimal. When we multiply these PV factors or discount factors to the amount of cash flows, you would be getting the present value of all these cash flows. Notice one thing, fifth year we have mentioned two cash flows, one is dividend and one is the sale proceeds from shares. Both of these will be discounted at the same factor, that is 0.567, and when you take the aggregate of all these present values, you get exactly rupees 1000.08, which is very close to 1000. In fact, it is 1000 if you round it off, and we are finding that your future cash flows are matching to the present value of 1000 when discounting rate is 12%. So concluded that IRR must be 12% approximately. Let us proceed ahead and understand how to conclude the answer. So please carefully note down the further part of the answer. We find that the purchase price of NJ Limited's share was rupees 1000 and the present value of past 5 years of dividend plus present value of the sale price at the discount rate of 12% is rupees 1000.08. Therefore, the realized rate of return by Miss Roshini may be taken as 12%, which we can definitely call as IRR, and this 12% is the cost of equity. And the method that we have applied over here, the approach that we have applied over here is the realized yield approach.